I was ordained in 2009 to the priesthood of Jesus Christ, and so just as it took me a while to get comfortable with praying the Mass and the words and the rubrics and when to hold my hands and so forth, and so just as I was getting comfortable, Rome came along and kind of pulled the rug out from under my feet, and we had our new Roman Missal that we've been using for about a year now. And I'm a big fan, of course, not that Rome cares what I think or asks for my feedback, but one of the things that I appreciate about the new translation is that just as I was starting to get comfortable, it sort of forces me now once again to pay attention to particular phrases and little tweaks here and there and changes in the words that we use at Mass. And one of the things then that I wanted to focus on is a change that has especially caught my attention during the Mass. The preface is the part of the Mass. Typically the priest gets his hands washed at Mass. The gifts have been brought up. Priest gets his hands washed. Everyone stands. And then the priest offers a prayer over the gifts, and then we have what's typically referred to as the preface. It begins with a brief dialogue, but then something that the New Roman Missal has done is made the words consistent, no matter what preface we use as a priest. It always says a line that jumps out at me and that I would like to spend some minutes thinking about today. The priest says, "It is our duty and our salvation." It is our duty and our salvation. And I would like to then spend some moments today reflecting about that. It is our duty and our salvation. First, I would like to focus on the word duty before turning my attention to our salvation. Whereas in more chivalrous times, you would hear the word duty much more frequently, now you basically, outside of military bases, do not hear people speaking about duties. But we get a reminder as Catholics every Sunday at Mass about duty. We are told that what we are doing there at that Mass is our duty. And I think that if the Church in the United States is going to continue to make a return to holiness, is going to continue to grow, and is going to return to a spot of relevance for our larger society, then it must come from a reclaiming of the word duty for us as Catholics. And I think then that it's particularly important that reclaiming of the word duty come from men. It's not that women don't understand what duty means. They do. But many women often are looking for leadership from men in this area. Pope John Paul II spoke very often about the feminine genius. And I would say that if there's a masculine genius, scholars debate that, especially women, but if there is a masculine genius, it is the genius and the ability to understand and comprehend the need for duties. And speaking about duty and reflecting on it, again, as we said, perhaps we should turn to those for whom duty is a much more common word. I'm thinking here again of our military. For military personnel, if something is a duty, they don't question it. They don't decide and mull it over. I wonder if I will do that or not. Colonel so-and-so asked me to do this. I wonder if I will. We don't kick around or mull over duties. The military does not do that. They don't decide which things they're going to abide by, which duties they're going to follow, and which they will jettison for personal comfort or for whatever other substitute there is. If there's a duty, military personnel understand you do it. You do the duty. And if something then is my duty, I don't care if I'm tired Sunday morning. If the Mass and the celebration of the Eucharist is a duty, as the Church instructs us every Sunday, then I don't care if I'm tired on Sunday morning. I don't care what I did Saturday night. I don't care what time I went to bed Saturday night or Sunday morning. What I'm doing at Mass is my duty. I don't care if I happen to travel out of town for my daughter's 19 AAU softball games. Mass is my duty. I don't care if me and my family have traveled to Boca Raton, Florida, or the Cayman Islands, or Amarillo, Texas for vacation. Mass is my duty. If I understand that something is my duty, then I don't care what the NFL schedule is. If it is my duty, then I don't care if the preaching is bad. If it's my duty, I don't care if the organist is 120 and the music is awful. I don't care. It's my duty. I don't care if people threaten me with jail, torture, mockery at work. What I do on Sunday is my duty. I don't care if I live in a place where people are blowing up churches. Sunday Mass is my duty. As is the case for a friend that I met in Haiti, from Haiti in the seminary. I don't care if I have to walk 6 hours one way for Mass. The Eucharist and the celebration of the Mass is my duty. It's my duty. And as men, not only is it my duty, if the masculine genius means that I have something to share with other people, especially in the role of father or grandfather or caretaker of souls that have been entrusted to me as a teacher or a coach or whatever, not only do I have to recapture a sense of duty and an understanding that what I'm doing at Mass and celebrating the Eucharist is a duty, I also have to pass it on to those who have been entrusted to my care and to my leadership. I hear one of the most disturbing things, I hear this very often, and there's a tie for things that a Catholic man can say to me that cause me to lose the most respect for that person. There's a tie. The first phrase that will cause me to lose an extraordinary amount of respect for a Catholic man is when that Catholic man tells me that he is comfortable voting in the affirmative for a politician who supports abortion. The other thing that causes me to lose an extraordinary amount of respect for a Catholic man is when he tells me, and it happens in a shocking amount, that he lets his children choose whether or not they come to Mass. That, to me, is an unbelievably baffling phrase. And oftentimes it's told to me in a bragging way, or as if the person telling me that, the Catholic man telling me that he lets his children or his people, the people that have been placed in his care, that person is often bragging to me. Father, I'm a really smart person. I'm one of those people who lets my kids choose. It's baffling. My parents never pushed faith on me. They never shoved Catholicism down my throat, as some people, apparently it was the case. We prayed at dinner, if we had dinner together. We prayed on Sunday night at our family meeting. I'm the oldest of 11 children, so it took about 4 hours to coordinate the schedule on Sunday night. Air traffic controller. The third thing that we did as a family in our faith is we went to Mass together on Sunday. A duty is a habit. People that understand duty are people that have been formed in duty. We have an opportunity to form the young people that God has placed in our care for a very limited amount of time. And my dad was that man. He set the tone. Mass was non-negotiable. I remember one time when I was at Roncalli High School, and the school project that we had was to go home and ask our parents what would happen if we missed Mass. I was terrified to even raise the question. Luckily, my dad is the president of the school, so I could blame it on the teacher, and he can handle it from there. But I remember asking my father, Dad, we're supposed to, for school, I'm supposed to ask you what would happen if I missed Mass on Sunday. I remember he didn't raise his voice or anything. He was just very matter-of-factly, you would be thrown out of the house. And I knew he meant it. And that was the way it was. It is our duty. We have the opportunity, all of us here, have people that have been placed in our care to help form them in duty, to help form them in coming to Mass for a very limited amount of time. When your kid is 18 and they're in college or whatever, they'll do whatever then they choose. Why not, what's the big difference? Why does your child need a 4-year head start? Well, they're 14. We have a policy in our house when they're 14, they choose whether or not to go to Mass. Why? 4 years from now, they can do that. They're 14 now. We don't say, no parent has ever bragged to me, Father, I got my children, I let them choose when they're going to receive life-saving medical treatment. Look how enlightened I am as a father. No one says that. No one says that about anything else, practically. I'll let my own child decide all of the things in the house. No, we don't do that. But for some reason, because we despise duty, and we have to become the bad guy, we often decide to cast off the command that God has given to us, which is to raise our children and those that have been placed in our care as men in the difficult task of duty. You have a very short window to do that. But here's the other thing I would say about that. Don't just drag them to church. After you've thrown the water on them in bed and you've chained them to the back bumper, have the discussion with them about what duty is. Tell them why you're making them go. Have a discussion about them about why it doesn't really matter if the priest's homily is the worst thing, the worst 10 minutes of your week. It doesn't really matter if the music is not up to Lil Wayne's standards or whatever else other junk you listen to. Son, we're going to Mass, and that's what we do, and that's not a negotiable thing because it's your duty. It's your duty. Talk about it being boring. Acknowledge that it is boring, first of all. Let them hear that from you. Son, I'm not going to be entertained, and neither are you. You're going because God asks us to go. And God knows us better than we know ourselves. And that's why sometimes things have to be told to us in the form of duty. How do we do it? How do we form our young people in duty? What are some other things we can do besides strapping them to the bumper and taking them to Mass, which we should do? One of the things that I think probably most of you have done or will have the opportunity to do at some point in the future is if you have one of the things that our society is obsessed with is sports. So use that. Coach sports. Form young people in duty. Every athlete understands what duty is. I played high school football, college football. I ran track in college and high school. I coached at Chittard for 2 years. I coached at Ritter for a year. Every athlete gets what duty means. Nobody goes to a practice at 7 in the morning for football when it's 130 degrees out and says, "This is awesome." No one goes to lift at 5 in the morning before school starts and says, "I'm really entertained." They don't say that. Why? Because it's not entertaining. But they know it's their duty. So if you have the opportunity and you're involved in sports, then form our young people in duty, and don't just hope they get what you're really doing. Tell them. I coached at Chittard for 2 years, and both years we were blessed and fortunate enough. We won state championship both years. And we told them every night, guys, we're not out here as coaches. We have homework to grade, wives that are at home taking care of the kids for us. We have all of these other things we could be doing. We're not out here because we want a blue ring that's kind of cheaply made. We're out here to form you so that you understand what duty is, so that you will then become a better man, a better husband, and a better member of society, and a better person in my parish 5 years from now. Form them in duty. We have to first get it ourselves. We then have to pass it on to those who have been placed under our care, and then we have to tell them what we're doing. Intentional duty formation. The other thing that you can do, I know the Diocese of Lafayette has a fantastic altar server program. Get involved at your parish, training young men how to be altar servers. And the idea of duty, that's another great opportunity. I want to move now to the second word, and I'm not going to spend as much time on it, don't worry. But duty. Duty is great. We have to recapture that, and we have to pass it on to those who've been placed under our care. But if we just said at Mass on Sunday, "Father, it is our duty," and we stop there, then this would be the Indiana Pharisees Conference. It's not the Indiana Pharisees Conference. It's the Indiana Catholic Men's Conference. Because of what we say at the second part of that phrase, it is our duty, but it's also our salvation. George Weigel, whom we all just were fortunate to hear a few hours ago, one of my favorite authors, said in his book that he wrote called Letters to a Young Catholic. He said, what is crazy about the church, what strikes the church, most people, as being really odd about the church, is that the Catholic Church stands up and seems to hold together things that seem to be opposites. Body and soul. Many people say they're different. We say, no, one. The body and the soul are one. Many people say you got the spiritual over here, you got the earthly over here. The Catholic Church says, no, they're one. And duty and salvation seem to be opposites. Either you are a military person who follows duties and laws and regulations and you're a Pharisee, or you get that the Mass and the Eucharist is our salvation and you're over here and you're a happy person. The Catholic Church stands up at Mass every Sunday and says, what we're doing here is our duty, and at the same time, it is our salvation. Now, that would seem to be really strange. Why would you need, if you're God, to make it your duty to go if it's also your salvation? I've thought about that a lot while I'm praying the Mass. Those seem to be opposites. You wouldn't need to tell a little kid, it's your duty to go eat candy. Like the kid knows, I want to eat candy. You don't have to make it a law. Some of you probably don't have to make it the duty of your wife to go shopping. She'll go. You don't have to say, you are charged and commanded to go shopping. You know, we don't need, for a lot of things that we get, that we want, we don't have to be told to do it. But yet the church is standing up and saying it is your duty to go to Mass. And it's your salvation. It's the center of everything. The Mass and the Eucharist are the center of everything. It's your salvation. It's the thing that gives us life. It's the thing that gives us joy. Anything that is true, that is beautiful or good, comes from Him. And the celebration of the Mass. The church is saying they're both true. It's your duty and your salvation. And it's sort of sad, actually. It's part of it lets us know that we're not where we need to be yet. Because God has to say it is our duty. We don't see reality as it truly is because of our senses, because of our human condition. And so God, in His goodness, says, I command you to go to exactly where you need to be, the source of all joy, the source of all that's real and true and beautiful. Sadly, He has to tell us it's our duty. But we'll never know that it's our salvation unless we first think of it as our duty and we go. No one is going to, from a distance, just all of a sudden decide, you know what, I think Jesus is my salvation. God is ushering us and saying, go. Go to Mass and bring other people with you, especially the people that I've asked you to care for. It is our salvation. A professor in the seminary once described the Eucharist to me and to our classmates in a way that I will never forget. He said, it is a nuclear bomb of grace that is set off at the altar every time the priest prays the prayer of consecration over the bread and the wine. It is a nuclear bomb of grace that changes the place in the surrounding area in a way that it can never be the same again. That is awesome. Radiation works in ways invisible to the senses, but it changes everything that it touches. And that is what happens when we go to Mass and when we spend time in adoration. It changes us slowly and in ways that we do not perceive because of our human condition. But what we celebrate and who we celebrate, who we spend time in the presence of here today and in all the adoration chapels throughout the state of Indiana, and every time we go to Mass, who we spend time with. If we spend time with Him, it will change us forever. Sadly, we have to be told first that it's our duty to go there. But we are. And we thank God for instructing us first and foremost in our duty. And finally, we instruct Him and we thank Him. We pray that He may continue to work in our lives as the source of our salvation. We now have some minutes here to spend in silent prayer, in adoration. Time to open our hearts to our source of salvation, allowing Him to infuse Himself into us and to change us forever. In 10 or 15 minutes, we will return the knights and the seminarians, and we will process our Lord through our conference hall here. We'll then come up and end with benediction and divine praises. But we now spend these few minutes here in prayer, giving thanks for our Heavenly Father and the gift of His Son, Jesus.